Ever feel like you just need a little confidence boost?
Yeah,
Like you're about to walk into a room and you wish you just had a little more swagger?
for sure.
Well, today we're going to do a deep dive into this YouTube video
Okay.
that promises to do just that.
Hmm.
It's called "This Video Will Make You Confident"
Okay.
by
Oh.
Thewizardliz.
Okay.
She's this really successful YouTuber,
Mm-hmm.
known for just giving really straight-talking advice.
I like it. Straight talking.
Yeah, and she does not hold back.
Okay, so what does she say? How do we get this confidence?
Well, right off the bat, she kind of approaches this whole idea of confidence from an action standpoint. So instead of waiting to feel confident,
Right.
she's like, you got to do the thing
Yeah.
to actually create the confidence,
Okay.
even if it's something that makes you uncomfortable at first.
Oh, interesting. So it's like take the action and then the feeling will follow
Exactly. Yeah.
instead of the other way around.
Yeah, she uses this example, right?
Okay.
She was terrified of heights.
Mhm.
And how did she overcome that fear?
Let me guess. She just avoided high places.
No, she went skydiving.
Whoa. Talk about facing your fears head on.
I know. It's kind of like that classic exposure therapy, right?
Yeah. Where you
Yeah.
confront the thing you're afraid of to lessen its power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then she brings up this idea of small steps and consistency.
Okay.
She uses going to the gym as an example. Like you don't just start by, trying to go 5 days a week.
Right. Start small.
You got to build up to it. Maybe start with 2 days. Then
Yeah.
as you get comfortable, you add a little more.
That makes sense.
She even says, start going to the gym 2 days a week. Then you do 3 days, then 4 days. Go for 10 minutes, go for 15 minutes.
Little by little.
Little by little, yeah. But make sure your body gets used to it.
I love that. It's like building any new habit, right? You break it down into these small, manageable chunks.
Yeah,
It just makes the whole thing less overwhelming.
totally. And then this is where she gets really interesting. She starts talking about how we all naturally seek comfort.
Okay.
But real growth, the kind that really builds confidence, that comes from actually embracing discomfort.
Oh, embracing discomfort.
All right.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, she actually compares it to that feeling when you first start working out.
Okay.
It can be tough at first,
Mm-hmm.
but the more you do it, the stronger you get.
Right, and you start to feel more capable.
And that feeling, that sense of accomplishment, it's like fuel for confidence.
That's a great way to put it. So it's like we need to reframe how we think about discomfort. See it as a positive thing.
Exactly. Like it's a sign that we're pushing ourselves, and that's how we grow. And she doesn't stop there. She actually links this whole idea of embracing discomfort to mastering any skill. Think about it. The more you practice something,
Yeah.
whether it's playing an instrument or learning a new language, whatever it is, the more you practice it, the more confident you become in that skill.
Right, you start to feel more competent.
And that sense of competence can spill over into other areas of your life, too.
I see. So it's not just about the specific skill, it's like a mindset shift that happens.
Yeah, like that aha moment when you finally nail a challenging task.
It's empowering.
It is. Okay, but now think about this. I think this next point is something we've all felt at some point.
Okay.
It's that fear of being judged, especially in situations where we're already feeling vulnerable.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like who hasn't felt self-conscious at the gym?
Totally.
But she tackles this head on.
Okay.
She reminds us that everyone else at the gym is focused on their own workout, their own goals.
Right.
They're not sitting there critiquing you.
It's a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in our own heads and assume everyone's watching us.
Right. And it's such a waste of energy. It's much better to focus on ourselves and our own progress.
I agree. So it's all about shifting that focus inward.
Mm-hmm. And she follows this up with advice that I personally needed to hear.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Let go of perfectionism.
Ah, yes. The curse of perfectionism. We all struggle with that.
She even shares this story from her early YouTube days, where she almost didn't upload her first video because she was so self-conscious about how her lips looked in the lighting.
Oh, wow.
She literally says in the video, I did not want to upload. Why? Because my lips look like crazy. This lighting makes my lips look crazy.
That's so relatable. It's so easy to get caught up in those little details and let them hold us back.
Right. And especially in the age of social media, it's easy to get trapped in comparing ourselves to these perfectly curated images.
It's like everyone's presenting this airbrushed version of reality.
But her story is a reminder that we don't have to be perfect to be successful, or to share our gifts with the world.
It's about progress, not perfection, and about embracing those imperfections that make us unique.
Exactly. And what's even cooler is how she overcame that insecurity. She shifted her focus from her appearance to the value she was providing to her audience.
So it's about focusing on the bigger picture.
Instead of obsessing over how she looked, she focused on creating helpful content and sharing positive messages.
That's a powerful shift. It's about finding a sense of purpose that goes beyond our own self-image.
And you know what? That shift in focus is exactly what helped her find success. It makes you think, what could we all achieve if we weren't holding ourselves back with self-doubt?
It's a great question to ponder. It's like, what if we gave ourselves permission to just go for it, even if we're not 100% sure of ourselves?
I know, right? Now let's get into some of her practical tips.
Okay, I'm right.
So she's a huge advocate for having routines, both in the morning and at night.
I've heard that routines can be really helpful, but I'm not always great at sticking to them.
Well, she believes that routines really help clear your mind
Okay.
and create a sense of self-respect.
Oh, that's interesting. A connection between routine and self-respect. How's that work?
She actually walks us through her own routine in the video.
Oh, really? What does she do?
It includes hitting the gym, doing hot yoga, taking care of her skin, and even making time for prayer.
Wow, she's got a pretty comprehensive routine.
Yeah, it's like a ritual that sets her up for success, both physically and mentally.
It sounds like she's really intentional about how she starts and ends her day.
And you know what's really interesting? She connects self-care to self-respect. She actually says that taking care of yourself physically and mentally influences how other people treat you.
I like that. So it's like by taking care of ourselves, we're setting a standard for how we expect to be treated.
Exactly. She even says, the way that I take care of myself shows to the world how they should take care of me.
It's a powerful statement. It's like when we value ourselves, it shows, and other people pick up on that.
And speaking of unexpected connections, she shares this really interesting tip about posture that she learned from a chiropractor.
Oh, posture tips. I'm always up for those. My posture could definitely use some work.
Well, this one's a little different. It's not about sitting up straight all the time.
Oh, really? I thought that was the key to good posture.
Right. But her chiropractor told her that people who have been really active from a young age, they actually tend to have better posture.
Okay, interesting. So it's about more than just sitting up straight.
Yeah, because they've built up those back muscles. He even said that as long as you're moving and engaging your back, you don't have to be rigidly upright all the time.
So it's a more dynamic approach to posture.
Exactly. It's not about being stiff. It's about strength and flexibility.
That makes a lot of sense. Our bodies are meant to move.
And she connects this back to confidence by saying that standing tall and moving with purpose can make you feel more confident and self-assured.
I can see that. It's like when you feel good physically, it affects how you feel mentally and emotionally.
Totally. Now, this is where things get really deep.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued.
She talks about actually creating a more confident version of herself to overcome past traumas and insecurities.
Wow. Creating a more confident version of herself. How did she do that?
So she was raised in an environment where she was constantly being put down.
Oh, that's tough.
So she literally created this persona, Thewizardliz, to help her express herself and share her message with the world.
So it was like a way to step into a new identity, one that felt more empowered.
Exactly. It's a fascinating example of how we can use our creativity to reframe our narratives. And she encourages listeners to do the same, to visualize their ideal selves and then start acting as if they're already that person.
It's like stepping into a role and seeing how it feels.
And the more you do it, the more that role can become integrated into who you are.
I love that. So it's about taking action even if we don't feel 100% ready.
Right. It's about embodying those qualities that we aspire to, even if it feels a little fake at first. And you know what? To help navigate the challenges along the way, she has this tool that she calls the okay and mentality.
The okay and mentality. That sounds interesting. What is that?
It's all about acknowledging negative experiences, but not letting them derail you. Like, something bad happens and you're like, okay, and what does it matter?
It's about not letting those negative experiences define us.
Exactly. She's basically reminding us not to sweat the small stuff. And this leads to an even bolder idea.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Realizing that you're not that important in the grand scheme of things can actually be incredibly freeing.
Whoa, that's a big one. Not that important.
It might sound counterintuitive, but think about it. It can actually reduce the fear of judgment and allow you to just live more authentically.
Yeah, it's like if we're not constantly worried about what other people think, we're free to be ourselves.
Exactly. And she points out this irony, that we tend to worry so much about what others think, when in reality, most people are wrapped up in their own lives and dramas.
Right. Everyone's got their own stuff going on.
She even backs this up with stories from her travels, where she's met people from all walks of life, each with their own quirks and insecurities.
It's a great reminder that we're all human. We all have our own struggles.
And then she connects this to the curated perfection we see on social media, urging listeners to limit their social media consumption to protect their mental health.
I think that's so important, especially in today's world. It's easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to those perfectly curated images and feeling inadequate.
I know, right? It's so easy to forget that those images often don't reflect reality.
It's all about being mindful of how we consume information and making sure it's not negatively impacting our self-esteem.
And speaking of self-esteem, she brings it back to something really fundamental: self-love.
Self-love, that's like the foundation for everything, isn't it?
Right. She emphasizes the importance of loving yourself even while you're working on self-improvement.
So it's not about waiting until we reach some level of perfection before we start loving ourselves.
No, it's about accepting ourselves as we are right now, flaws and all, and about recognizing that we're worthy of love and compassion regardless of our perceived shortcomings.
I think a lot of people struggle with that. It's easy to be our own harshest critics.
She even encourages listeners to do something that might feel a little silly at first.
What's that?
Hug yourself and tell yourself how amazing you are.
I love that. It might sound cheesy, but I bet it actually feels really good.
Right. It's like a physical reminder to be kind to ourselves.
Right.
And she connects self-love back to confidence, saying that when you truly love and respect yourself, you're less likely to seek validation from others. You walk into situations with that inner knowing that you are enough.
It's about recognizing that true confidence comes from within. It's not about what other people think of us. It's about how we feel about ourselves.
Exactly. And to help embody that confidence, she encourages listeners to actually walk into any situation like they own the place, projecting that aura of self-assurance, even if they feel nervous on the inside.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. It's about shifting your energy and mindset.
And maybe by acting confident, we can actually start to feel more confident. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. She even applies this to things like dating and job interviews, reminding us to prioritize our own needs and desires, not being afraid to walk away if something isn't the right fit.
It's about knowing our worth and not settling for less than we deserve.
Okay, get ready for this. She's a firm believer that you can achieve literally anything you set your mind to.
Anything. That's a bold statement.
Especially if you've seen someone else do it already.
I see. It's like if they can do it, I can do it too.
Exactly. It helps to break down those limiting beliefs. She shares her own experience of facing opposition from her family when she first started pursuing her dreams.
Oh, that must have been tough.
It would have been easy to give up, but she trusted her intuition and kept going. She actually says that the point where she really started seeing success was when her family was telling her she was embarrassing them.
Wow, so their doubt actually fueled her determination.
It's like their lack of belief in her actually made her more determined to prove them wrong. And she connects this back to the power of good intentions.
That's interesting. So it's not just about setting goals. It's about the energy and the intention behind those goals.
Right. As long as you're coming from a place of authenticity and integrity, she believes you're on the right track, even if others don't get it.
It's about being true to ourselves and our vision, even if it doesn't make sense to everyone else.
All right, get ready for a concept that might sound a little counterintuitive.
Okay, hit me with it.
Embracing the idea of knowing nothing.
Knowing nothing. That's an interesting concept.
She believes that coming to terms with the fact that we don't have all the answers actually opens us up to continuous learning and growth.
It's like acknowledging that there's always more to learn, and that's exciting, not intimidating.
Exactly. It's about approaching life with a sense of curiosity and wonder. And this naturally leads to her next point: the value of truly listening to others.
Listening is so important, but it can be so hard to do well.
She actually used to be someone who would interrupt people or constantly reassure them while they were talking.
I think we've all been there. Sometimes it's hard to just listen without feeling like we need to jump in with our own thoughts and opinions.
Right. But now she's really focused on honing her listening skills.
How did she do that?
Well, she's developed this technique where she resists the urge to constantly offer reassurance or validation while someone is talking.
So it's about giving the other person space to fully express themselves without feeling the need to fix things or offer solutions.
And by doing that, she's found that she can learn so much more from the people around her.
It's about being present and truly absorbing what the other person is saying.
And she believes that we can learn valuable lessons from anyone, regardless of their background or profession. She talks about having meaningful conversations with everyone, from doctors to retail workers.
I love that. It's a reminder that everyone has a story to tell and something to teach us if we're open to listening.
And speaking of sources of wisdom, she brings it all back to her belief that, and I love this, God always provides.
That's a beautiful sentiment. Whether we believe in God or a higher power, I think it's comforting to know that we're not alone in our struggles.
She actually heard this saying in a meditation, and it's become like her personal mantra. She says that whenever she's needed something, whether it's protection, guidance, or the strength to let go of a negative influence in her life, she's asked for help, and it's always been provided.
It's about having faith, isn't it? Faith in ourselves, faith in something bigger than ourselves.
And she even applies this belief to the challenges she's faced, saying that even when things feel difficult or painful, she trusts that there's a bigger plan unfolding.
It's a perspective that can help us to see our challenges as opportunities for growth rather than just obstacles to overcome.
Exactly. And this leads to her final point, which is a real mind shift. She believes there are no bad days, only learning experiences.
Wow, that's a powerful reframing of our challenges. It's about seeing the good in everything, even when things are tough.
She even quotes a line from a movie called Bulletproof. There is no good or bad, there's just fate. She truly believes that everything happens for a reason, and knowing that makes her feel powerful and resilient.
It's about trusting the journey, even when we don't know where it's going.
So we've covered a ton of ground already.
Yeah, she packed a lot into that video.
What are some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, I think what's really striking is how she emphasizes the power of action. It's so easy to get caught up in our feelings, and let self-doubt hold us back.
Totally.
But her message is really clear. Take action, even if it's a small step.
Do the thing.
And the confidence will follow.
That's so true. And her personal example of overcoming her fear of heights.
By skydiving. Yeah, talk about walking the talk.
I know. It's not just about those big dramatic actions either, right? It's also about those consistent small steps we take each day, like building a solid routine or making time for self-care.
I agree. It's those small, consistent actions that build momentum and create lasting change.
And her point about embracing discomfort, that really resonated with me.
Yeah, it's like true growth happens outside of our comfort zones. And the more comfortable we become with discomfort, the more resilient and confident we become.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we can choose to see challenges as opportunities for growth.
And her message about letting go of perfectionism, oh my gosh, I think we all need to hear that more often.
Oh, no, right?
It's so easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others and feeling like we're not enough.
It's like that constant pressure to be perfect, to have it all together.
But she reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy or successful.
And her story about almost not uploading her first YouTube video because she was self-conscious about her lips.
So relatable.
I know. It's a great reminder that we all have insecurities, but it's about not letting those insecurities hold us back from sharing our gifts with the world.
Absolutely. And I love how she shifted her focus from her appearance to the value she was providing to her audience.
Yeah, what a powerful shift.
It's about finding a purpose that goes beyond our own ego or self-image.
And her point about not being that important in the grand scheme of things, how did you feel about that?
I found that to be both liberating and challenging. It's a reminder to let go of the need for external validation.
Yeah.
And to focus on living authentically.
But it also requires a certain level of humility, right?
For sure. And a willingness to let go of the ego.
One thing I really appreciated was her emphasis on self-love.
Oh, yeah. Self-love is so important.
It's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of self-improvement that we forget to just simply love and accept ourselves as we are.
And self-compassion is key. It's about treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, recognizing that we're worthy of love and belonging regardless of our accomplishments.
And her self-affirmations, as cheesy as they might sound, are a great reminder to speak to ourselves with love and encouragement.
It's about shifting that internal dialogue from self-criticism to self-compassion.
And when we practice self-love, it radiates outward, right?
It does. It influences how we interact with others and how we show up in the world.
So as we move into the next part of this deep dive, I think it's worth pondering. How can we create our own highest selves and start living more intentionally, confidently, and authentically?
That's a great question to keep in mind as we continue. It's interesting how she talks about creating a more confident version of yourself.
Yeah.
It ties back to what we were just talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
taking that vision of your highest self and actually stepping into that role.
Oh, totally.
Almost like an actor playing a part.
Oh, I love that analogy. It's like we don't have to wait until we feel confident to start acting confident.
Exactly.
We can just choose to embody those qualities, even if it feels a little fake at first.
Yeah, and over time, that acting can actually start to shift our internal beliefs
Right. It's like you're kind of tricking your brain into believing it.
and helping us become more like the person we envision.
And I think her emphasis on routines plays a key role in that too. Yeah, because when you think about it, a routine is all about making conscious choices about how you spend your time and energy.
Right, it provides structure.
Exactly.
It helps us to prioritize the things that are important to us,
And minimize distractions.
which frees up mental space for our bigger goals.
She even talks about how self-care is a form of self-respect.
Oh, I like that. Self-care as self-respect.
The way we treat ourselves sends a message to the world about how we expect to be treated.
Right, it sets a standard.
Remember that quote?
Hmm.
The way that I take care of myself shows to the world how they should take care of me.
It's such a simple but profound idea.
I know.
When we value ourselves and prioritize our well-being, we set a higher standard for the people and experiences that we allow into our lives.
And that higher standard is all about aligning with our highest selves, right?
Absolutely.
It's about making choices that support our growth, our happiness, and our overall well-being.
It's about recognizing that we deserve to be treated with respect. Yes.
Both by ourselves and by others.
Now, something else she talks about that really resonated with me is the importance of good intentions.
Okay.
She believes that as long as our actions are rooted in authenticity and integrity, we're on the right path, even if others don't understand or approve.
That's empowering, isn't it?
It is.
It's a reminder that we don't need external validation to pursue our dreams. Or to live a life that feels true to ourselves.
And she backs this up with her own story of facing resistance from her family when she first started her YouTube channel.
Oh.
You know, it would have been easy to give up,
Sure.
but she trusted her intuition,
Yeah.
and she kept going.
Good for her.
She even says that the moment she started seeing real success was when her family was telling her she was embarrassing them.
Oh, wow. So their doubt fueled her determination.
It's like their lack of belief in her made her more determined to prove them wrong.
Sometimes adversity can be a catalyst for growth, right?
Really?
Yeah.
And she connects this back to the power of good intentions. Okay.
It's not just about setting goals.
Yeah.
It's about the energy and the intention behind those goals.
It's about aligning our actions with our values.
Right. As long as you're coming from a place of authenticity and integrity, you're on the right track.
Even if it doesn't make sense to everyone else.
Okay. Are you ready for another one of her thought-provoking ideas?
Hit me.
She talks about the importance of embracing the idea of knowing nothing.
Knowing nothing. Okay, that's a new one.
It might sound counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but she believes that acknowledging the limits of our knowledge actually opens us up to a world of learning and growth.
So it's like intellectual humility.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
In fact, it's the starting point for true learning.
She actually says that the more she realizes she doesn't know, the more eager she is to learn.
It's a shift in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Instead of seeing learning as a chore.
It becomes an adventure.
Yeah.
And this ties in so beautifully with her emphasis on the importance of listening.
Listening, yeah.
She's learned so much from simply paying attention to the people around her,
It's such an underrated skill.
from all walks of life. She truly believes that we can learn something valuable from every single person we encounter.
It's not just about hearing the words, it's about really tuning in,
Right.
being present, trying to understand their perspective.
She actually describes a technique that she uses to strengthen her listening skills,
Oh, interesting.
where she resists the urge to constantly offer reassurance
Yeah.
or validation while someone is speaking.
Right, don't interrupt.
Instead, she just focuses on absorbing what they're saying.
It can be challenging to resist that urge to jump in,
Oh, totally.
especially for those of us who are naturally empathetic.
Yeah, we want to help.
Right, we want to fix things.
But by giving others the space to express themselves fully, we create a more authentic and respectful space for dialogue.
And we might be surprised by what we learn in the process.
And she brings it all back to her belief that God always provides,
Yes.
which has become like her guiding principle in life.
Whether we call it God, a higher power, or simply the universe, I think a lot of people can relate to that idea of trusting in a force that's bigger than ourselves.
She shares these incredible stories about how whenever she's needed something, whether it's protection, guidance, or the strength to let go of a negative influence in her life, she's asked for help. And it's always been provided.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles.
Right.
There's a source of strength and support that's always available to us if we're open to receiving it.
And this belief extends to her perspective on challenges and setbacks, too.
Okay.
She says that even when things feel difficult or painful, she trusts that there's a bigger plan unfolding.
It's a perspective that allows us to find meaning and purpose, even in the midst of adversity.
Instead of getting stuck in the negativity of the situation, we can choose to trust that we're being guided towards something better.
It's a powerful reframe.
And this leads to her final point, which is a real mind shift.
Okay.
Remember how she said there are no bad days,
Yeah.
only learning experiences?
It's about choosing to see our challenges as opportunities for growth.
She truly believes that everything happens for a reason.
Okay.
And knowing this makes her feel empowered to face whatever life throws her way.
It's a reminder that we have a choice in how we perceive and respond to the events in our lives.
Now, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about something that she mentions that might resonate differently with different people.
Okay.
She talks about the liberating feeling of realizing that you're not that important in the grand scheme of things.
That's an interesting one. Not that important.
It's about finding that balance between recognizing our own significance
Yeah.
and acknowledging that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
I can see how that could be both empowering and challenging.
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox. On the one hand, realizing that we're not the center of the universe can free us from the pressure to be perfect
Right.
or to constantly seek approval from others.
It takes the pressure off.
It does.
We can relax a little.
Yeah, it's like she's saying, hey, it's okay to relax, be yourself, and let go of the need to control everything.
And for people who struggle with social anxiety
Oh, yeah.
or the fear of judgment, that could be incredibly liberating.
Right. It's a reminder that most people are preoccupied with their own lives and thoughts.
They're not sitting around analyzing our every move
Exactly.
or judging us as harshly as we might imagine.
But I can also see how this perspective could be challenging for some people.
Sure.
Might feel a little bit, I don't know, nihilistic
Yeah.
or depressing to think that we're not that important in the grand scheme of things.
It could make us question the meaning and purpose of our lives.
It's a valid concern, and I think it's important to remember that recognizing our relative lack of importance doesn't diminish our value or our impact on the world.
It's not about saying that our lives are meaningless
Right.
or that our actions don't matter.
Exactly. It's more about finding a healthy perspective,
Yeah, a balance.
a balance between recognizing our own limitations
Right.
and embracing our potential to make a positive difference.
It's about understanding that we're all part of an interconnected web of life, and that even small acts of kindness and compassion can ripple outward
Yeah.
and create positive change.
And I think that's where her message about the importance of good intentions comes into play again.
Okay.
When we focus on acting with integrity and authenticity, we create a positive force in the world.
Regardless of how important we may or may not be.
And this leads to another one of her insights that I found really refreshing.
Okay.
She talks about the importance of recognizing and embracing our own weirdness.
Our weirdness.
Yeah, she actually says, people are weird. And I love that.
There's beauty in our imperfections, right? What makes us unique also makes us interesting and relatable.
And she contrasts this with the curated perfection that we often see on social media,
Oh, yeah, social media.
where everyone seems to be trying to present this flawless image of themselves.
The highlight reel.
It's a great point. Social media can be such a double-edged sword.
It can be a great tool for connection, but it can also create these unrealistic expectations
Highly.
and contribute to feelings of inadequacy.
Especially if we're constantly comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah, it's important to be mindful of how we consume information.
And Thewizardliz is actually pretty vocal about her own decision to limit her social media use.
Good for her.
She says she does it to protect her mental health.
It's a great example of setting healthy boundaries with technology.
And I think it ties back to that idea of embracing our weirdness.
Okay.
Because when we step away from those curated online personas, we give ourselves permission to be our authentic selves.
Our messy, perfectly imperfect selves.
And I think that's where self-love comes into play again.
It all comes back to self-love, doesn't it?
It does. When we truly love and accept ourselves, flaws and all, it becomes easier to let go of the need to impress others.
Or to conform to those unrealistic standards.
Self-love is the foundation for everything.
It's about recognizing our inherent worth.
Yeah.
And treating ourselves with kindness and compassion.
And the Thewizardliz encourages us to practice self-love in really tangible ways, like literally looking in the mirror.
Okay.
And telling ourselves how amazing and beautiful we are.
It might sound cheesy, but there's actually a lot of research to support the effectiveness of positive self-talk.
It really can shift our internal beliefs.
And create a more positive self-image.
And that positive self-image then radiates outward, influencing how we interact with others and how we show up in the world.
It's a chain reaction of positivity.
And speaking of positive actions, another thing she emphasizes is the importance of focusing on what we want.
Okay.
Both in our personal and professional lives.
What we want, not what we don't want.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of our desires and making conscious choices that align with our values.
It's about shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance.
Instead of focusing on what we lack, we can choose to focus on what we want to create and experience in our lives.
I love that.
And she encourages us to be bold.
Okay.
And assertive in pursuing those desires. She even gives the example of going on a date or a job interview with a clear sense of what you want to get out of it.
Being clear about our intentions.
Not being afraid to set boundaries.
Or walk away if something isn't a good fit.
You know, her overall message is so empowering. She truly believes that we have the power to create the lives we want. And she backs it up with her own story of overcoming adversity and achieving success on her own terms.
She's a living example of what's possible when we believe in ourselves and we're willing to put in the work.
She even has this great quote, "Anything someone else already has done, you can do as well. Even when it hasn't been done before, you can be the first one to do it."
So good. It's a reminder that we all have the potential to achieve great things.
If we believe in ourselves and are willing to put in the work, and it's not about comparing ourselves to others or trying to replicate their success, it's about finding our own unique path.
And creating something that feels meaningful to us.
And sometimes that path might lead us in unexpected directions. Remember how she talks about the importance of embracing the unknown?
Oh yeah, being open to new experiences.
Sometimes the most incredible opportunities arise when we're willing to step outside of our comfort zones.
It's about cultivating a sense of curiosity.
Yeah.
A willingness to say yes to life and see where it takes us.
So I think that's a perfect segue into what we'll be exploring in the final part of this deep dive. We've talked a lot about the importance of self-belief, self-love, and taking action.
Foundation.
But how do we actually put these ideas into practice in our daily lives?
The million-dollar question.
How do we create lasting change and start living more intentionally and authentically?
We're going to dive into those practical strategies and more when we come back.
So stay tuned. Welcome back. We've been deep diving into Thewizardliz's video on confidence.
My brain is buzzing with all these insights.
Me too. There's so much good stuff in here.
I know, right? It's so refreshing. She blends her personal stories with these really practical strategies.
Oh, absolutely. And you can tell she's speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Which makes it so much more relatable.
Oh, for sure. It's not just theory. It's like, hey, here's what I did and it worked.
Exactly. It's like she's giving you a roadmap.
Yeah, I like that. A roadmap to confidence.
And one thing that keeps coming up for me is this idea that confidence isn't just an internal feeling, but it's also about how you carry yourself in the world.
Absolutely.
Like, remember how she talked about looking good, smelling good, dressing in a way that makes you feel good.
It's about self-respect.
It's not about vanity. It's about self-respect.
It all comes back to that quote.
Yeah.
The way that I take care of myself shows to the world how they should take care of me.
So good.
Setting a standard.
And it's not even just about clothes or grooming, right? It's about how you move. Remember that advice you got from the chiropractor?
The chiropractor?
About good posture.
Oh, yeah, that was an interesting one.
It wasn't about sitting up straight.
Yeah.
It was about engaging your back muscles.
And moving with purpose.
Yeah.
It totally challenges the traditional view of posture.
I know, right?
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Our bodies are designed for movement.
Not for sitting still
Exactly.
in these rigid positions.
And she made a great point about how that translates to confidence. Like,
Right.
when you move with intention, stand tall, it actually makes you feel more self-assured.
Like a feedback loop.
Yeah, feedback loop between our physical state and our mental state.
So we've talked about the mind-body connection, the importance of self-care, the power of good intention.
Okay.
But what about the daily habits that can help us stay on track?
Yeah, the practical stuff.
Thewizardliz is a big believer in routines, right?
Oh, absolutely. Routines can be game changers when it comes to creating structure.
Intentionality in our lives.
And she actually walks us through her morning routine, which is pretty inspiring.
Oh, yeah. What does she do? Remind me.
Hitting the gym or doing hot yoga,
Oh, wow.
taking care of her skin,
Yeah.
even dedicating time for prayer.
It's like a whole ritual.
It's like she designed a routine that nourishes her on multiple levels.
Physical, mental, spiritual.
Exactly.
And I think that's key. Finding what works for you,
Yeah.
creating a routine that supports your unique needs and goals.
A routine shouldn't feel like a chore.
Right? It should energize you.
It should set you up for success.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to that thought-provoking question we left you with earlier. If you were to create your highest self, the most confident, empowered version of you, what would be the one thing that version of you would do differently today?
It's such a good question for self-reflection.
I know.
It challenges us to think about our ideal selves
Right.
and then identify those small steps we can take to bridge the gap between where we are
Yeah.
and where we want to be.
I've been thinking about that question a lot.
Yeah.
And for me, it comes down to being more intentional about my time and energy.
Intentional with your time and energy. How so?
Well, I think my highest self would be more mindful of how she spends her time,
Okay.
especially when it comes to things like, social media, mindless scrolling.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get sucked into that vortex.
I know, right? Social media can be such a time suck.
And we waste hours.
It doesn't always leave you feeling that great either.
No, not really. It's just noise.
Yeah, it's like you're constantly bombarded with information and stimulation, but it doesn't always leave you feeling nourished.
Exactly. And I think that's where Thewizardliz's point about limiting social media consumption, it's so important.
Setting healthy boundaries.
Yeah, it's not about cutting it out completely.
Right.
It's about being more mindful.
And I think that intentionality can extend to other areas of our lives as well.
Totally.
It's about making conscious choices about how we spend our time, who we surround ourselves with, and the activities we engage in.
Absolutely. And that includes making time for self-care.
Oh, self-care is so important.
Because when we prioritize our well-being, it impacts everything else.
We show up as better versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
In our relationships, our work, our communities.
It's a reminder that self-care is not selfish.
No,
It's essential.
it's about filling our own cups. So we have more to give to others.
Another thing my highest self would do differently is practice more gratitude.
Gratitude is like a superpower, isn't it?
It is. It really shifts your perspective.
It helps us to appreciate the good things in our lives.
Yeah.
Even when things are tough.
And it ties in so beautifully with her message about trusting that God always provides.
When we cultivate a mindset of gratitude,
Yeah.
we open ourselves up to experiencing more abundance.
Enjoy.
It's like we're training our brains to focus on the positive.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a challenge.
Okay, I like a good challenge.
What is one thing you can do today to start living more like your highest self?
One thing.
Doesn't have to be huge. It could be something small,
Small steps.
like taking a few minutes to practice gratitude.
Setting a time limit for social media.
Maybe incorporating a new self-care ritual into your day.
Remember, those small steps, taken consistently, can lead to big transformations.
And remember, you are capable of amazing things. Embrace your weirdness, believe in yourself, and go create the life you dream of.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.